Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make frosted tea cakes, and this is what they look like. This tea cake is like a cross between a vanilla butter cake and a scone, and we're going to make them even better tasting by spreading on a confectioner frosting. So the first thing that you need to do is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need a baking sheet. I've lined mine with parchment paper, or you could just butter or even spray your pan with one of those non-stick sprays. So to make the batter, if you have an electric stand mixer like I have, use your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer for this. First thing you will need is a half a cup, 113 grams of butter. I like to use unsalted, you could use salted, and have your butter at room temperature. And I'm just going to beat it just until it's nice and smooth. Okay. And as always, scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl as much as you need to. You want to make sure that all your ingredients are always mixed together. So the next thing you will need is a half a cup, 100 grams of granulated white sugar. And then I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. Try to use the pure vanilla extract, though the artificial ones don't taste quite as good as the pure. So now, what I'm going to do is beat this on medium-high speed. I want to get a little air into the batter and get everything all mixed together. So probably about 2 minutes on medium-high speed. Okay, so this is what you're looking for. Just all nice and mixed together, a little bit of air beaten in there. Give us a lighter textured tea cake. So now what we're going to do is add 3 large eggs and have them at room temperature, and we're going to add them one at a time. And if you want to go by weight, that would be 150 grams of eggs out of the shell. They beat in, you want your eggs at room temperature because they will beat in much more easier if they're rather than cold. So I'm going to beat one in, then add the next, and then the next. Yeah, scrape that down. Okay, and the next one. Okay, and now the last one. Just give that a scrape. Okay, so it's all mixed in. I find I beat maybe about 30 seconds after I add one of the eggs, just to give you a rough time. So now, in a separate bowl, I have 2 1/4 cups, which is 295 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And I am using unbleached, just in case you want to know that. And then I'm adding 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of baking powder. It's going to give a nice lift to our tea cakes. And a half a teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. I'm using the kosher salt. It's got a milder flavor than a table salt, but either one. Now, if you use salted butter, I would just leave out the salt in the recipe. So now I'm just whisking this all together. You could sift it if you wanted to do that. You want to make sure that baking powder and salt is really mixed in to your flour. And then I'm just going to add this and beat it on low speed. Especially at first, you don't want that coming up at you, just until everything's all mixed together and you have a nice dough. Okay, that looks good. So now scrape everything down here. And then I got some flour on the sides of my bowl, so I'm just gonna mix that in. And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna roll and cut out our cookies. Now this is a fairly, like I said, it's kind of between a cake batter and a scone. Now if you found yours is really, really soft, like maybe your butter was a little soft or it's warm in your kitchen, you could refrigerate this just a little to get it firm enough to roll out, but mine looks pretty good. So flour your surface. And you will need, as you can see, I got a rolling pin. Although if you don't have a rolling pin, you could just pat it. What we're going to roll it to about a thickness of a 1/2 inch, which is about 1 1/4 centimeters. So, and I am going to cut out using about, you can use like a 2.5 inch cookie cutter, so about 5 to 7 centimeters. You know, if you want larger cookies, although really you can cut these as large or as you can make little mini ones. So as you can see, this is a fairly soft dough. It's so beautiful. When my sons were small, I used to make these all the time. They love them. Okay, so oh, isn't that gorgeous looking? Like I said, make sure you move it around. Have your surface well floured. And then what we're going to do is just, see, you could really just pat it to the thickness. So I'm just going to take my cookie cutter and cut out cookies. If you had a lot of flour on the bottom, you could use a pastry brush just to brush the flour away. You might want to flour your cutter before you cut. And just space them, you know. I usually put 3 across. Okay, so a little extra for the second sheet. So now what we're going to do, everyone's oven is a little different. So I find around 12 minutes, could be a little more, could be a little less, and depending how large you made your cookies and how thick. What you're looking for, they will be slightly just starting to turn brown on the bottom. They will be set, and if you take a toothpick and insert it into the center, it will come out clean. Okay, so our tea cakes are ready. Just check the bottom. Yes, very lightly brown, and they're nice and set. So what I did is put the baking sheet on a wire rack. I'm going to let them cool a couple of minutes like this, and then I'll remove them from the pan, and then I'm going to let them cool completely, and then when we come back, we will make our confectioner frosting. So for our confectioner frosting, again, you could use your stand mixer with your paddle attachment or a hand mixer. First thing you will need is 6 tablespoons, which is 85 grams of butter, and have your butter at room temperature. And then I'm just going to beat that until it's nice and smooth. Okay, and then you will need 1.5 cups, which is 180 grams of confectioner sugar. You may know that as powdered or icing sugar, and I do like to sift it. I just use a strainer. You could use an actual sifter, because I find the powdered sugar typically has lumps, and we want our frosting to be nice and smooth. So I'm going to add that along with, whoop, a bit of a mess there. I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of pure vanilla extract, just for flavoring. If you didn't want to flavor it with vanilla, you could leave it out. So now I'm going to start this on low speed, so I don't want it flying up all over the place. And then I'm going to turn the speed up to medium-high and beat it a couple minutes. I want to get some air, make it nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so at this point, I want to check the consistency. So it's, if I take, because I want to be able to spread it on my cookies. It is a little, as you can see, it's a little thick. So we are going to thin it out. Now you could use a little milk or a little cream, either one. But at this point, be very careful how much you put in, because you could then end up making it too thin, have to add sugar, go back and forth. So I'm only going to add like just maybe a teaspoon at this point, because it's easier to add a little more liquid. I don't want to keep going back and forth. And then if you want to color your frosting, at this point you could add a little bit of food coloring, if it'll come out. There, okay, just a little. These gel pastes, a little goes a long way. So I'm going to beat this in and then we'll check it again to see. Okay, I think that's about right. Just check that. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. So now, I'm just going to scrape this out. And the other thing you want to do is make sure at this point to really scrape the bottom and the sides of your bowl, because you want to make sure that that coloring is all mixed in. You don't want streaks, or what can happen is you can have a little bit still of white where the coloring didn't get mixed in. So at this point, just give your frosting a really good stir. So, oh, pretty. And if you want, for the kids, you can have colored sprinkles, entirely optional. So now I just take a, you can take a knife or a spatula, a spoon, and then just spread it on the top of the cookies. Some people call these, when you use pink frosting, pink cookies, which is an apt name. Or you could color the frosting a couple, divide it up and do a couple different colors if you want. That'd be kind of pretty if you're having a party and have all different ones, colors. So there we have it. This is very easy. We're not getting fancy. We're no piping bag today. And then if you want, some sprinkles. Kids always like the sprinkles, I found. So there we have it, our frosted tea cake. So let's try a little. Cut off a little bit here. Good thing about these, they're excellent right away, but you can store them in like 2-3 days. They're still really good. Actually, then the frosting kind of gets into the cookie and softens it a bit, so it's really good then too. This tea cake, you have that really soft, and it's quite moist, nice vanilla scented. Like I said, it's kind of like a cake, scone, cookie. That's why I call them a tea cake, because I'm not quite sure. And then you get, of course, a buttery sweet confectioner frosting. What could be better? So try these, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.